as far as the business goes, the writing goes, the organizing and scheduling goes. It just like it all clicked, and I knew what I needed to do. I knew it was the right choices and stuff at the time, and the timing was perfect. But none of it was like really planned up to that point. It just like something clicked that seventh year, you know. And it was also my third release, and I, had fallen a lot and had to get back up a lot prior to that. And so, yeah, I do think that there's some sort of 7 year, 8 year mark, something like that. I mean, people talk about 10 years too. 10 years they talk about in bands and band industry stuff. 10 years of albums and touring around that mark puts you somewhere that can sort of, force you to grow past that point, right? Where your band might start really having the ball rolling by then, but it might not feel like it until that point. I mean, I definitely still am like, man, how am I figuring this out? What do I do now? But then something clicks and I just know what to work on, what to focus on. But like you said, it's easy to get caught up nowadays in things like quality and like, oh, is it good enough and stuff. And yeah, you do have to really throw that stuff aside and just get content out there because you're going to grow as you go. You're going to grow once you get your sophomore album, your junior album, your senior album out there. Like you're going to be a different person and a different musician. And you're only going to be better at that than if you waited an extra 2 years to do that album, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually what I was thinking about too. Like, you're getting better at your craft. Also, um, your tastes change. So, like, when listening to older stuff, um, like young Jeff, 15 years ago, recording with Kindo, um, I'm really proud of that guy. But I hear what he was trying to do. Do you know what I mean? And what all of us were trying to do. Um, which, like, if we were to be writing those songs from 15 years ago now, it'd be I think they would be a lot better. They wouldn't be what they are though. And it's so interesting how when you're a fan of music versus a creating music or any art, like as a fan, you have this um I guess a sense of ownership, or just it hits you and it means something to you. And it freezes in time there, but when you're creating something. Oh, so go ahead.
There's something about that that's really special. That's a topic that's come up in my head and in other people's channels and heads too. Is that moment in time of your life of where you are and what you're experiencing, and the art that you absorb, the music that you absorb, it becomes a part of you and it becomes iconic. And it doesn't really matter whether it's like some level of musicianship that you're listening to or something. It's more about the moment and how it's affected you. I don't know. It's just you'll see a trend in generations always where like they're like, oh yeah, this is cool, but I remember this when this came out in this year when this happened. It's always associated with a moment in time in their life and a stage of growth in their life. And I just think that we're just going to see that same trend when every generation. It's all about the experience, the mood, and how it impacted you and why. And then it's not so much about like, oh, how many notes or how good are they at theory, or how good chops they have. No, it's about like how it impacted you in your life at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Talking about like how it impacted you. Like, um, I guess I have a question for you because I'm not sure how I relate exactly to it. But like when someone comes up to you and I'm gonna make an example up, but like, when I heard this song, uh, my grandfather died and it helped me through this rough time. And then the next song, like, I got back together with my girlfriend, and this record or a series of songs that you did is like a big soundtrack for their life. Um, for I guess my question is, how do you respond to that? How do you react? How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, definitely gotten those. Man. It's pretty heavy. That's the stuff that sort of fuels me to keep going, to be honest. Because for every crazy heartfelt message, or maybe a fan at a show tells you this, right? But for every time you get an experience like that where someone tells you something like that, you know, you're also sifting through the bullshit online and, you know, all the struggle, right? Where you're like, why am I doing this? That's why you're doing it right there, man. When you can impact and inspire someone in some way, whether it was getting through a rough time or whether it was, you know, creating, you know, an iconic moment in their life for uh, meeting a girlfriend or getting married or something, having a kid. I don't know. It could be either or. You know, with tragedy, we create, you know, sort of a catalyst of inspiration. Usually, at least a lot of us can. You know, I have the ability to. I know I have before, but yeah, when I hear that stuff, that's kind of what makes me keep going, man. Because there's a lot of bullshit that you deal with in the industry. There's a lot of noise in the industry, a lot of compromise that you always have to choose to make or not. And in the end of the day, you just want to make your art and know that it had some meaning, either to you or to
Yeah.
someone. That's at the end of the day what it's all about, man. It's that human connection. Um, so yeah, as heavy as that stuff can be, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. But as heavy as that stuff can be, that's the fuel for the fire, man.
Yeah, it's like it, it's actually helping me put this into words, kind of how relate to that stuff. It's a I think my initial reaction, I didn't realize that was possible to happen, right? Like when I started playing music, it was a purely, I guess, selfish, but it was just the thing that I loved to do. And
Yeah.
that's it. And I never thought about anybody liking it. I never thought about, of course you did, because you want, you know, we're artists, but like
That's
that was like that.
that's why I got my first guitar.
Yeah. Wait, would you say why'd you get your first guitar?
I wanted girls to notice me. That's why I got my first guitar.
You know what's funny about that? I was talking to Matt Scannell from Vertical Horizon and Richard Marks. We were on Richard Marks was on tour with us this one tour, and both of them said they started playing guitar because they wanted girls. And I was like, they're incredible guitar players and song, and obviously it's just who they are. But that wasn't even a thought in my brain either. I was like, I sort of uh, um, kind of feel naive in that sense when I was young. I just loved the guitar. That's it. I just loved. Well, first I loved the music I was listening to, and the thought that I could play that music that I was hearing was just magical to me. And then you think, well, I could make music too. But it's like I didn't sign up for the responsibility of being a soundtrack for somebody's life, and I'm glad it happened. You know.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, I definitely didn't know that was going to be a thing, you know. And obviously, the you know the wanting attention thing faded and just turned into nerdy guitar obsession, right? Getting and the main thing it turned into eventually is getting the soundtrack in my head out, you know, somehow. Dreaming out loud is something that Michael Hedges has said before, you know, using the guitar to get what's in here out, and that's how I write music for the most part. Obviously, I embellish on it and try to structure it in some ways after it, you know, gets regurgitated from here to here, but ultimately I'm just trying to play what's in my head, you know. And so that's why I think that it's a soundtrack already for me in my head. So it's pretty cool to hear that it can be a soundtrack for someone else, especially in, you know, cases where it's like something that got them through a hard time and stuff like that. Definitely didn't think that was ever going to happen, but it's a trippy cool concept, and it makes me kind of realize that the whole point of music is that connection with each other in the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm learning that even more and more, like with social media and you know the way the world is right now. It didn't grow up in this world, and it's still very foreign to me. Um, and I guess in a sense, I wonder if you relate to this. I guess in a sense, there's good and bad. The good thing is that like the negative comments that I get, like it doesn't land. Like I honestly don't read most comments, but that also goes for the good ones too. So like if we get good ones like I love your band, blah blah blah, it also doesn't land or feel real. Um, and I wonder if for you, if you relate to that, or because you have a different relationship with social media and you're very savvy with it. Um,
Yeah, it's lately I've been pretty off of it myself because of just having to unplug and recharge to get ready for revamping everything for the next releases and focusing on the studio and stuff. But yeah, I've always sort of had a love hate relationship with social media just because I don't like getting sucked into scrolling. I don't like getting sucked into comments. I don't really like even look doing this, right? Like that hurts my neck, and I got neck problems. So I definitely like have been very avid about doing what I need to do and then turning it off otherwise. But one thing that I was really adamant about for a long time was giving the fans response, the fans that deserved a response, giving them a response, replying to every comment, every question that was, appropriate and relevant. And said sometimes even telling people and convincing people that were negative at first, like, hey, that's not cool, you can either leave or change your tune. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, and lately I've been more about kind of just turning that stuff off and getting shit done here so that I can come out stronger and harder and with better quality and quantity and content and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of a love hate thing, right? Because I feel like sometimes you're taking away time and effort and focus from music, and that's what you're here to do. But at the same time, you feel like shit when you work hard on something and you try to figure out how to share it, and you just get like 3 likes and 10 views, and you're like, well, what am I doing wrong? Or
well, that's it right there, right? For me, that's exactly what I was gonna say, and as you were saying that, um, is like, the feedback I get that affects me is if it's not performing well enough that people don't aren't paying attention or care about it. Like that that means way more than someone that says I hate your music, or something.
yeah,
Because you want people to hear it, you know. Um,
you want
and the way that,
you want
oh,
to
wait,
reach
sorry,
you want to reach someone. I'm green.
yeah. Um, we released this music video last week. And I spent a long time on it. We did, but it was like 3 months of my life, like making it happen. I love it. I'm so proud of it. And like, there are a couple comments that were like, "Song's good, video's bad," or like stuff like that. And it didn't bother me as far as like, it's not for you then, But it was more on an existential level. Like, why do you feel the need to say something like that? Like, like at least some people from the band or team are going to read that. Like, what is your point in saying that? It's only going to, um, you know, make them feel bad, or like, what do you want to be heard? Like, what is it? You know?
I don't know if I'll ever understand the process of that, but I do know that I've been known to be negative when I'm not happy.
Mm.
So I just pretty much chalk it up to that most of the time now. I'm like, hey, and I know people will try to argue and be like, oh, what's with this? Like everyone has to be happy and nice thing. And I'm like, honestly, dude, if your life was hella awesome, you wouldn't care enough to say shit like that. You just wouldn't. So either
Yeah,
you're fucking about your own problems and you feel the need to somehow shed that in some way, or you just suck. Like there's no, I don't know. I don't really sympathize anymore with people that feel the need to go the extra step to give their negative feedback, because it's
that's
not like
it. Yeah.
we're in school. It's not like you're my professor. It's not like we're peers even half the time. I'm creating something and giving it to you, especially stuff that's like YouTube that's free basically. Free content.
Uh,
It's like come on,
I
dude.
didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
It's like come on, dude, you didn't pay for it. You didn't, like, you're getting something given to you that's hard work. You either enjoy it or you don't. You move on. Go Go do what you enjoy, go see what you enjoy. And I'm not a big fan of sympathizing or trying to understand that thought process, but I do know that like if you're happy, you don't feel the need to say that stuff. So that's all I can really say.
Yeah, I think did you hear when Dave Chappelle was on like I think it was Letterman or Conan or something talking about Kanye West. Do you know the story? Uh, he
Yeah.
Kanye West, yeah, Kanye West was like, I love it. I From when I heard the story, I was like, Kanye's whatever. I'm like, no, I love this guy because he was in this watching an episode of Chappelle Show with Dave Chappelle before it came out, and he's on the cell phone, and he's like, just talking. He's like, yeah, about to watch a Chappelle episode. He hasn't aired it yet because my life is dope and I do dope shit. Like you just heard that end of the conversation. He's like, my life is dope and I do dope shit. It's like
Dude,
that's
you have
it is conceited, but it's positive.
Yeah, I mean, I know that not everyone has like, a whole lot of things to be happy about, and I've definitely been there in my life where I've been miserable. But in order to get to this point right now where I am at, like, I feel like my happiest and best that I've worked towards, I started from shit, and I had to get through the rut by being positive, by reminding myself of my goals every day, by telling myself like it can be worse, like the these are the things that I think of telling, another aspiring, artist in some way, even if it's not a musician, just a person, because everyone's an artist. Everything you do is a part of you, and you can put art in it, even if it's fucking working at McDonald's. Like you can make what you do an effort and an art, and you can think of goals and push yourself to better things, and you can be positive, dude, and you don't have to shed negative things on anyone. Like I'm not big on thinking too hard into a whole lot, aside from what I love doing. But I do know that like I think everyone deserves to live the life they want to live and be the person they want to be without the impression or oppression of others. And if if you have something to say that's you know negative, just don't bother.
Yeah, and I think that that's why I brought up that the Kanye quote because even as I just said it, and it's funny, like I felt myself believing it, and I think that believing it for myself. I think that Kanye is the person that I mean he he came from not a lot, so I understand, and he seemed like the kind of guy that just always thought and believed that about himself, and it goes to show. I guess the point is like it matters. It hugely matters what you put out into the world, um, because once you vocalize something, you're solidifying that as a thought you have about yourself and the world, and not only that, you're spreading that. You're spreading that gospel.
You manifesting it, there is an energy to it. And that manifest destiny thing, the idea of self visualization, those are all things that I've had to do to get to this point. I mean, when I was doing martial arts, that's the thing they always talked about. You don't imagine yourself, like you are clumsy or messing up or not succeeding or not following through. You imagine yourself as like the badass. You imagine yourself as the black belt. You imagine yourself as like already having done it. Same thing with like skateboarding when I was a kid. You have to imagine yourself landing the trick. You won't land the trick if you don't. Like, and there's
Isn't
that
it weird?
self visualization thing where you have to like tell yourself like, no, I'm going to do this, and like call it whatever you want, call it a placebo effect, call it energy and karma, call it willpower, whatever. There's something to it, and like that's how I've gotten to this point as a person and as a player and as an artist. And I feel like that's like exactly what you're getting from that quote from Kanye and stuff like that, or just the general idea of having to like give that positive self reinforcement, and then also giving it to other people. Like one of the things that I try to do to counteract the negative part of social media that I get is for every, and I need to get back into this, but I used to do this where for every like negative thing I saw, I would either first off unfollow it or mute it, and then second off I would go and like try to shower some random person with good comments. Like it feels so good to do that. Why don't we do that more on social media? Just give someone a free, uplifting, positive compliment and comment on, like I love trying to do that, especially on like little channels, like I try to go see like what little young guitar player with 2 posts that had 10 likes is while following me on my posts, and I'll go like try and reinforce him. Like, that's free. I get to give that away for free. Like, that's what social media is for, is spreading that positive thing. And I think more of us artists need to vocalize that and try to like, encourage people like, hey, for every like negative comment, let's get 5 good ones. Like, let's overpower this shit.
That's really good, man. I mean, I needed to hear that. Because it's difficult. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Not easy.
Yeah, no, the social media landscape, we don't have to get into that whole discussion, but it's it's very difficult, and there's a lot to it that we're not ready for this thing, and nobody knows how to handle it. But finding things like that, that's free, like, it works. There's been, throughout the years, like, people who have done like a cover of a Kindo tune or just posted it. I'm like, oh, that's really good. And, actually wasn't even thinking to say anything. I just like, oh, I was like, hey, this is really good, man. Great. And the way they responded, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think it really affected, you know what I mean? And in a really good way. It's such a cool thing to do. And I mean, I know how I would feel like if you know, I love Radiohead, and if I just like did some fun little thing and Tom York was like, dude, that's great. I'd be like, what? You know?
Dude, it's all about that giving back aspect. I've been talking about that a lot too, just with some peers and friends and family. Just that concept of giving back somehow. I mean, that's always in the back of my head. So yeah, you can always give back in some way, shape, or form, even if it's a positive comment. There needs to be more of that on more levels with people, on social media. There's too much rampant negativity, and yeah, I mean that's why we're here, right? We're here for the fans. We're here to, you know, talk and provoke the thought, and make catalysts for inspiration. I mean, that's ultimately what this whole music thing has become for me. It's like, not only is it's always for me too. There's always going to be that part of it that's like, it's mine. I get to create for me and like my own pursuit, you know. But it's all about the fans too, And so that's like, there's all kinds of multiple ways of giving back and drawing inspiration from each other.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I mean, I love you, dude. I love talking to you. And was couldn't wait to talk to you and do this podcast. But continually, again, just doing the thing, like, it's hard to like set aside time in a schedule. And like we tried before, and I'm like, I'm really wanting to talk to Adrian, but now that we're here, it's like, man, this is life. This is why, we do this. We're kin. We're the same family. And for anyone that's listening, when Adrian and I first met in person, uh, was at my mom's place in North Tonawanda, uh, the night before our first gig on the road, because you were touring with us in the same van. It was like 3 a.m, and literally it was just like, within a minute, it was just like, oh yeah, I've known you my whole life. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, I felt so at home. Like, as soon as I got there, I was like, this is exactly what I've, imagined it to be. Rob was right when he told me, he's like, you and the Kindo guys are gonna get along. You, Jeff, and Joey, and then obviously got along with everybody, but he knows you guys, and so he knew it was gonna work, and it was like, it clicked, man. Like, I'm gonna know this dude the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, it's cool to have that too. Like, Rob is really great, really generous, but we have that in common. Um, but it was a vulnerable thing, because my mom had just moved out of the house at that point, uh, like within a year, a little less than a year, so a couple of months. So that apartment was a temporary apartment. It wasn't that big. Um, not that homey in North Tonawanda, which is like um, it's not an affluent part of Buffalo at all. And it was a very transitional time for my family. It's like, all right, I think everyone spent the night in this apartment once or twice, maybe, you're gonna be sleeping in my sister's bed, like my sisters were both in high school and they have the same room for that year because that was just a transit until they got a new house. They recently moved down in Myrtle Beach. Actually, they bought a house down there, which is cool. Um, but it just goes to show like how it it could have been not great.
Yeah, no, and there's always a sense of like how's this going to go when you're doing a tour with new people, and you're meeting for the first time, because that can make or break a tour, that can make or break a friendship, that can just make a mess of things in some cases. I've heard plenty of stories, and I've had some experiences with people that weren't pleasant, on tour, and it's part of the gamble, the roll of the dice. But there is something about making yourself vulnerable, and that's like where the most growth happens, the most opportunity happens. I mean, it goes hand in hand. Life is about compromise and contrast and balance. There's always a giver and a take, and when it comes to making yourself vulnerable, there's always this level of growth that can happen in huge ways, whether it goes the way you wanted it to or not. And in our case, it went really well, man. It was great. Your family was wonderful. We had a really successful tour, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but I feel like we
Yeah,
did it. We did a great job, and we have become great friends, and that's what the results you want to see on a tour, and yeah, man, it was pretty cool. I miss it.
yeah, it was like a boot camp, that tour. It was uh uh was it 28 shows in 30 days, 31 days, I think. 28 shows, 31.
26 states, over 9,000
Yeah,
miles.
full US tour.
Yep.
Crazy. And touring definitely brings out the worst in everyone at times. Mostly just because, like, you know, it's the road is difficult, and you have,
Like you said,
Kindo six. Sorry.
boot camp, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, and Kindo has 6 people. We had Sear Tip, we had you, so it was 8 people in a 15-seater van, and it could have been a disaster, and it was not at all. Which is why I think we miss it. But I'm also glad that was way too grueling, though.
I've heard from many people that 2 weeks is the magic number. Like don't try not to go more than 2 weeks if you
Yeah,
can. Obviously, if the money's really good and the opportunity's good, you got to go for longer than that in many cases. But I've heard from many professional touring peers that 2 weeks is typically like the number you want to shoot for. 1 week, but yeah, we did almost an entire 4 weeks. We did 30 days. So yeah, it was pretty gnarly. Pretty gnarly, man. Yeah, we did, because we had I think two off days, but we also had two all-nighters where we had to drive 16 hours too. So that kind of cancels the off days. uh,
that's not an off day.
it's like a overtime, right? And then not to mention most days we had full itineraries, hour to hour. We had things that we had to do. I mean, we had scheduled breaks, where it was like, no, you have van call at this time, and then if you don't make it, you're breaching our agreement. You're putting the tour in danger, and you can't do that. It's just not an option. So yeah, we were serious, and that's why we all agreed on it and made it happen, and we all took it seriously, and it was a success, so I was really really happy and proud of that, and I'm still grateful that you guys took me on that. So
Dude, I'm glad you went. It feels like so long ago. And well, I mean, this past years with just the pandemic has just been a whirlwind. Was that a year and a half ago? That's 2019, right?
yeah, it was a year ago, and a year and some change. I think it's August. The whole month of August is when we were gone. So it's been a year and
Right,
some.
right, right. That makes sense. Man, anything before the pandemic feels like it's been 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean that year was a whirlwind for me because I just I'd gotten the record deal with Candy Rat and released the record, and it got a lot of options for touring, and so I did the tour with you guys, which was the biggest US tour, but then I did a big European tour right before that. I did a bunch of trade shows and corporate gigs during the summer right before that. And then right when I got back, I like immediately went and did a music camp and then another small tour in the Midwest. And then I did another West Coast tour and then another series of conventions and corporate gigs. And then I did another West Coast tour, and it was like up to Canada at that point. And so I didn't even get to rest until February this year when the pandemic hit. So it was like, oh shit, well, guess I better shift gears. Time to build this studio, time to like figure out streaming, time to get these video stuff down. And so that's now it's time to get the new record done. And yeah, I guess that leads us all to like the conclusion of this whole thing is I know you guys are working on music. You guys are releasing some music. I heard a great tune recently. I know you guys got more stuff cooking with, and I've got some stuff cooking, some things planning and coming up. So yeah, I, I'm stoked, dude. This has been a great way to
Yeah,
connect.
when is before we end all this, what stuff do you have coming? Is anything being released anytime soon? What's your plan here?
So I don't have any tentative release schedules yet, but basically I'm looking at first quarter of 2021 having some releases with Candy Rat. I am working on an album, but we're going to roll it out in the single format, we're thinking, and there's going to be videos and stuff all that involved. I'm also going to be getting my Patreon finally launched, which is going to focus on instructionals and tutorials and workshop streams, and we're going to have a community Discord and stuff like that, and it's just going to be focused on techniques and teaching and building a community around that kind of stuff. So there will be giveaways. I'm getting some stuff lined up from some sponsors, including a guitar eventually. Yeah, so we're gonna do that, and then my plan is, depending on how things go with the pandemic, getting a vaccine and protocol, adjusting accordingly. I have been working on this home studio and getting my chops with mixing and recording so that I can eventually open a commercial space with a couple other engineers here in Sacramento that I'm talking to. So I plan on getting a studio space open for doing acoustic and voice reproduction and mastering in sometime in 2021, depending on how things go with COVID. Otherwise, I will start taking on mixed jobs and stuff like that remotely for the time being while I get my home studio pimped out more and I pump out some of those videos for the first quarter of 2021.
Come on! Come on!
One!
Come on!
One! My dog just went.
Well, dude, I love you, man. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you, buddy. I miss you.
Appreciate you.
Gonna have to message all the Kindo boys and connect after this. Now that we've caught up, and yeah, let's do this again sometime in the near future. And looking forward to more of your guys' music and stuff too.
Dude, yeah. And let me know when your Patreon's being launched, man. I want to be a part of that.
All right, buddy, I appreciate you.
Got it, man. Love you, dude.
Bye, bud. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Peace. Bye, brother. You too.